Hey everybody, this is Travis Pfeiffer bringing you another Deck Tech Talk. Today I kind of wanted to talk about a new thing that's kind of been taking the TCG world by storm, and that's the Samurais. Basically carried on the back of this guy, Tenzin. Samurais have existed before, of course, and they actually got a decent boost last opus from Cyan, but this Tenzin has really bumped it up to the next level. So like most samurais, he's brave, and if you haven't actually used this card, it's pretty crazy the amount of value he can get. He reads really great, and I thought he sounded great when I read him, but when I used him, he just feels so much better than he even reads, because so at the end of every one of your turns, you're going to reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, and you can add 1 card or job samurai to your hand. And then when he leaves the field, you get to add a samurai of cost 3 or less from your break zone. You add that to your hand. Now it's important it says leaves the field, not go to the break zone, so that way if they have a Yuna or he gets Shantoto'd, he's still getting you that value. He's still going to get you that recursion. And then him getting you basically a card back in your hand every turn. And the way this deck is built, at least most samurai decks that I see have been built, is that it's very rare he's going to whiff on that. He's going to reveal plenty of times, and it's very rare that you're not going to reveal a single samurai to add to hand. So, even if they answered him immediately, as long as he resolves once that you get to reveal 1 card, he's more than done his job. And if he ever stays on the field longer than that, he's just value, 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 value. I had to use proxies for this, so just pretend this is 3. But, yeah, he is amazing. I thought the deck already had some potential, but he just makes it incredible. So Tenzin's just fantastic, and so here's the people he's got supporting him. If you're going in Samurai, you got to go in Samurai, so we also have 3 copies of Cyan. Cyan's great because he's an EX burst, and then when he enters the field, he's a searcher, so he can search for any job or card named Samurai. Forwards, backups, whatever, doesn't matter, he can grab it, so he can immediately grab your Tenzin, he can grab one of the backups to help ramp up that way, which is great. And then his second effect is what makes them so dangerous as board wipes, is that anytime a job or card named Samurai attacks, you deal 1,000 damage to their entire board for every job or card named Samurai you control on the entire field. Counts your backups, counts your forwards. So if these 2 are on and they attack, both of them are doing 2k to the opponent's board. And with the number of Samurai in the deck, that can get pretty scary pretty quickly. And it's great. And again, because Tenzin gives you such value, in Opus 11, it really felt like you had to kind of rely on this Cyan trick. But really, that's just this great power bonus too, whereas he gets you enough value that even if you can't do that, there's still kind of value outside of that. So, another one of the targets he has is one of the, just such a great value card that's so easy to overlook, and that's Aroha. So we've got 3 copies of her. Aroha is a job samurai, so she's just adding to the mix. She can be pulled off Tenzin, pulled off Cyan, she's going to count for both. And then she reads that if a fire character you control deals damage to a forward, the damage will increase by 1,000 instead. So when Cyan attacks, if Aroha's on the field, whatever his number is, that's getting automatically buffed by 1. So he can just turn it up to that next level, and then she's going to count for that too. So she just feels so great. And then she can also tap herself and ping something for 1,000, which because of her own effect is automatically going to go up to 2. So again, she's just more, they all synergize together so well. They all feed into it. Samurais in general, actually I'll talk about this on the next card. This is my favorite samurai, and this is Hien, and I loved him in Final Fantasy XIV Stormblood. I liked his character a lot, and I just really like this card. I actually joined the game at the end of Opus 7, so he was one of the first new cards I saw, and I like him a lot, especially in Fire. So if you control a job samurai other than Hien, he gains 1,000 power in Brave, and Brave is, to me, highly underestimated and great. And then anytime a job samurai forward you control attacks, everyone gets plus 1,000. So if you've got these 2 on the field, he attacks, if any of them attack, if any of these guys attack, the whole board's getting plus 1,000, and then it's pinging for whatever Cyan's going to do, which is just great. So Hien is a perfect example of kind of old archetypes and issues that they used to have. Because if you notice, he says, if you control a job samurai. He doesn't say card name samurai. So because of that, Hien kind of has this old design of that if it's just a card name, which you're going to see, we have a few like card name samurai that are standard units. You know, this is an example of one. This isn't in the deck, but just an example of one. He wouldn't actually get buffed off this. So like Cyan would count for it, and Tenzin can pick it up, but Heian doesn't actually get his buff off of it. And again, it's just kind of this old mentality I think they had when they were designing these cards of that, well, we'll just go by job, but it just ended up hurting the archetype, and it's just, it really hampered it. So it seems like with the printing of Cyan and Opus 11 in general, they seemed like, you know, Monk's got the same treatment of just like, hey, you know, it's got to be job and card name. Like, there's too much stuff that's missing out. So, normally I do all the forwards first. We're going to kind of jump around here. To back up Heian is his good buddy Gosetsu. So 3 copies of him. He's an EX burst. He can technically search for Heian or Yugiri. I've yet to make a deck that has both of them in it, so the Yugiri part's always been kind of but he's here just to search out Heian. Gosetsu is a job samurai, so as long as Gosetsu's on your backup line, Heian's going to get his buff. He's a burst, you can search Heian. Now some people say you don't want to have as many searchers as the targets you have, so for example you have 3 here, 3 here, so he obviously can't search out every single one unless you never draw one, but 1, he's a burst, and 2, Tenzin again kind of helps alleviate that because he's just now 1 more card Tenzin can hit off of his trigger, which is okay, then you get to draw a card into your turn, which is great. So yeah, I think playing him at 3 feels really good. With that, we have 3 copies of this Opus 7 Samurai. This Samurai is okay, not my favorite. So to get the maximum, now it's a 2 CP backup that's card name Samurai. So honestly, which makes him nice is that in this deck, you're really okay just slapping that down turn 1. He does have an entry trigger though, which is that when he enters the field, you choose a fire forward and it gains 2,000 in Brave until the end of the turn. So ideally, you want to have someone who can attack, because then he's going to give them a power boost, and then they can attack and still remain brave. He's especially good with someone like Cyan or Aroha, who doesn't naturally have brave anyway. But again, in this deck, it's okay to just play him turn 1 just as a cheap 2 CP backup, because now you've just got a Samurai on the field who helps enable the others. So get his effect if you can, entry, but it's not necessary. And he does have a damage 5 ability too, where you can pump something and give it brave as well. Which is okay. I've used it on occasion. Again, generally it's not super duper relevant, and just if you're doing that, just be careful that if you're trying to like calculate how many samurais you have, be careful messing with that math. Similar, we got another brand new samurai here in Opus 12, and it's another 2 CP backup. And this one has an action ability where you can pay 3, tap and break him, and you can burn up a forward for 8,000, which you can only use if you control 3 or more card/job name Samurai, which in this deck is not an issue to hit at all. Like, I've never had any issues hitting that, but at the same time, I don't really use that effect that much. Again, he's a 2 CP backup. Archetypes really do benefit from just having that card name or job name. You know, if these guys are all on the field, Cyan right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, any Samurai that attacks is going to be doing 7,000 to the board, 8 if Aroha's on here. So if you've got, you know, and again, these guys, what's great, Gosetsu is unique, but these guys are multi-playable units. So you can just load up your backup board with all the Samurai if you want, and then you're just boosting those numbers even more. So that's what's so nice, is that, yes, their abilities can be nice when they happen, but don't feel like you have to save them to get those abilities to work. You're more than happy to just plop these down. And again, these are all the targets Tenzin can hit as well. Finally, rounding out our Samurai is Ayame here. He's honestly not very good, I'll be honest. He has Brave naturally, and then if you get to damage 5, he gets 3k power, which isn't irrelevant. So, you know, at damage 5, he's going to be at 10k, which is cool, but kind of similar to like a lot of these kind of samurais. They all have a similar thing of, oh, at more damage, they get more power and Brave, which is nice, but he's really ultimately in here for a Tenzin trigger and a Cyan trigger. You know, and then maybe help fill out these numbers. But yeah, it's to give another card that Tenzin can hit, so that way you don't whiff his effect. And you can recover him via Tenzin. Now, nice thing, Tenzin can recover any Samurai here except Heian. He's the only one he can't pull back when he dies. But, you know, it's just another one to fill it out. Ayame, he's the one I'm always willing to pitch for something else. I'd much rather have one of these other guys out, but yeah. So this is a Samurai package. Now, you have 2 choices when you're playing a Samurai package. You can either fill it out with more of the generic samurai, like this one, or the one from Opus 1, things of that nature, or you can fill it out with something else. So originally I had made kind of like an Ifrit fire control deck, but I wanted to try it with something new. And that is my favorite summon in the whole game, and his brand new Opus 12 card, and this is Bahamut from Opus 12. So Bahamut is really great. So he reads that when you have 3 or more fire summons in the break zone, he gets plus 2,000 power. And then if you have 7 or more fire summons, he also has that when he attacks, he deals 5,000 damage to the board, which is great. So again, it kind of just fits in with this cleave theme of that Bahamut or Cyan are both causing basically anyone you have to attack just boom, really hit your opponent's board. And Bahamut's there in case he's got enough summons. And then also Bahamut has, you can tap a fire, pitch a Bahamut card to do his impulse, which does 4k to the board, which again, another easy way to combine with Cyan. You know, let's say you're kind of, it's nice because it's when you're behind, like when you don't have a board full of samurais and you're just overwinning, if you've just got Cyan and these 3, Cyan can attack, do 4k to the board, then you can stack an impulse on top of that to do 8k. So I found they really blend together well. And then Bahamut has another special with Mega Flare. And what makes this card, I think, feel so good is that it's the first summon to get a forward. So you can take all these summons and use them as special fodder for him, but you can also cast them, as the actual summons themselves. And that's always been an issue in the past, is that, the special fodder, you have to hold it just for the special. But in this case, you can use the Bahamut summon if that's more beneficial to you, or you can, use it for one of his triggers. So to help out Bahamut, we have 2 copies of Feng. She makes any card named Bahamut you cast require 2 less, and that includes any of the summons and that forward. So if you tap him, he can come down for 1 if Feng is on the field. Feng also will gain first strike when she attacks, which is that Opus 1 design, or is that Opus 1 design that she only gets it when attacking? Like, there's no reason she couldn't just have that normally. But, whatever. She's just there to help out Bahamut. And then finally for the forwards, and keep note, this is a lower forward count deck than like you might be used to, is Terra. 2 copies of Terra there. Terra's an EX burst. She's going to get you back any of your summons, which is great. And then when you cast any of those summons, again, she can ping for 2k. So with all the other ways you have to ping in this deck, it's just one more way to add more damage onto it. So she's great. So this is the forward lineup. So here are the summons we're playing. We've got 2 copies of Amaterasu. Honestly, if I had another physical copy, you could easily bump this up to 3, because this card's just great. It's protection against auto abilities. It can take out what your opponent does. It can trigger off the Terra ping. Again, protect any of these guys from your brutal auto abilities. Shantoto. Card's just fantastic. We've got some Ifrits we're running. We've got 3 copies of this Ifrit, and then 2 copies of this new Opus 12 one. I find all the Ifrits to be kind of just somewhat interchangeable. This one I'm the most partial to because it's 8k damage, which is nice, plus it buffs any fire forwards by 3k. Well, this is mono fire, or 2k. This is mono fire, so it's going to buff anybody. So that can be a really good combat trick. Maybe you block with Bahamut and they think they're going to trade because it's 9 versus 9. Boom, Ifrit comes down, buffs them up and then takes out another forward, which is great. And then we have 3 copies of our Theater Rhythm Bahamut, 2 copies of our EX Burst Self-Damage Bahamut, and 2 copies of the Opus 8 Backup Bahamut. So he's nice just because he's a burst. He's always a little tricky because he's going to deal you a point of damage. But again, sometimes that's not a bad thing. I just watched a match last night where a guy had 2 forwards attacking him. He takes this on the first point of damage. Well, you were going to take 2 damage anyway, so you might as well activate him and then blast, the other forward, so that way at least there's a forward off the board. Now, it sucks it doesn't trigger the burst when he goes, but he's there if you need it. It's 10k. He's also 10k, and then unfortunately for him, he can only be cast off of backups, which really sucks. So he's probably the one I like the least. This is actually probably my favorite Bahamut. Yes, he does the least amount of damage. It's only 8,000. But 1, there's ways to buff that up in the deck. And 2, he just doesn't have any of those drawbacks that the other 2 have. So he's probably my favorite one to cast. These are the ones I'm more likely to use for that special fodder. And the nice thing is, too, once he's hit someone for his damage, if it dies at any time before the end of the turn, it gets removed from the game instead of the break zone. So he is really good against, like, Veritas or Porum, or, you know, Light Wool, anything that has a, when it goes to the break zone effect, he can completely negate that. And again, what makes this kind of so synergistic is that this Bahamut just needs fire summons. He doesn't even have to have these Bahamuts. So you could, if you wanted, you could cut these out and just go full in on like the Ifrit Afrida theme. And then, because yeah, he just wants fire summons. Like, and then you could just use the forward body for the special. I still kind of like this because I can abuse the special a bit more. But as long as you got fire summons in there, you know, you're ready to control. This Ifrit too, I don't know if I touched on him, but he's just an EX Burst. I like the EX Burst. You could go for the 4-cost Ifrit. That one ultimately gets up to 9k as well, so it's just kind of your preference on that. Now to help out Bahamut, we have 2 copies of Moody. Moody is great because when Moody enters the field, you'll get to search for a fire summon, which is any of these. You can go grab a Bahamut special. You can grab your Pump Ifrit. I'd probably grab this one last because he's a burst, so I'd want to keep him in there. Amaterasu's great to grab. Okay, I can immediately cancel something. And then, anytime you cast a card named Bahamut, you can activate Moody. And again, that counts for any of the summons or the forward. If Fang is on the field and Moody is on the field, Fang reduces him by 2. He's 1. Moody, you tap Moody, play him, Moody reactivates. He's free. He's 100% free. So that feels great. And then finally, to help out those summons, 2 copies of Vermilion Bird Lassie Kaytuna. If you're playing a fire summon deck, I feel like it is mandatory you run this card. It will increase the damage of all the fire summons by 1,000. Now you're going 10, 9, 9, 9, 11, 11. That's huge. And then when she's played to the field, you immediately can cast a fire summon of 4 or less. Well, with the exception of this Ifrit, that means any of these. That means an Amaterasu, which, granted, I don't know what situation you'd be in that you'd be doing that, because I don't know what kind of auto ability they could be using that. But usually my target for her is either this one, because she can cheat it out, she gets over his backup restriction, or maybe this one again, because he's going to bump up to 9 just off of her. Terra can increase that if he's on the field. And yeah, so it's going to make all those fire summons going cheaper, and it just feels really good to play a backup that immediately brings out a summon, boom, blows something up. That feels great. We have 2 copies of Lebreau. Anthems aren't dead. I absolutely love them, and I think they're incredible. Every single thing in here getting stronger, good. That means he's going to 10k, 6, 8. Tenzin being a 10k is incredibly relevant. That's going to put Heian up to, let's see, he gets up that. He'd be 10k on his own before he attacks. When he attacks, everything's just getting bigger. Yeah, it's just, it makes all your forwards stronger, which is always great. And then finally, 1 copy of Geomancer. I just like this backup. I think it's really good in mono fire. It's guaranteed to hit something. It's basically going to read, enter the field, draw a card, because everything in here is fire. And then if you need the space, for another Samurai, you know, I've had actually a few games where I've gotten down a ton of Samurai first, and I got down the Geomancer, and so I cracked him to be able to eventually put Lebreau down, which is nice. So yeah, that's the deck. So here's what I really like about it, is that all these pieces work together. They don't conflict with each other. And I think that's what's so good about this Bahamut, is that he just needs fire summons. So again, you could remove all these Bahamuts, put a bunch of Ifrits in. He's going to work just as well. And they don't take away from each other too. That's the nice thing, is that really you can just focus on the Samurai portion. Bahamut's just there to help. It's nice if you get Moody out for Bahamut, same with Fang, but you don't have to. You don't have to have Moody out. You don't have to have Fang out. Bahamut will still do his thing. Like, that's what's nice. To me, that's one of the big differences between like a good archetype versus a bad one, is that some of them, it's like you have to have, you know, backup A, backup B, backup C out, and if you don't have all 3 of those out, your forwards suddenly don't work. But that is not the case here. This is very much focus on the Samurai. This is just your control aspect of it. These guys are just going to control your opponent's board, while the Samurai get to build up, and then they're going to swing in and take out your opponent's board as well. And then again, Bahamut, that's what I love about him. He can just come down on his own. You got a bunch of summons in the break zone. You even got 3. Boom, he's just now a big body, and then he's threatening that he's always going to have that extra power. You can get the Moody down if you can, but again, like that's what I love about it, is that it's not like, oh, I didn't get Fang down, so Bahamut was worthless, or oh, Moody wasn't down. No, it still works just as well. Couple little tech options. You could lean really heavily into the Samurai, but you're going to have to play more of these standard unit ones, and I just don't think these cards are very good. I think these are the prime Samurai you want to be playing. And then, now one thing you definitely could tech in, which was recommended to me by my friend Alex, is something like a Kuchaspel. If someone has a Minwu on their field, they're going to stop any of this ping damage, the Samurai ping, the Bahamut ping. Now, what it won't stop is, again, a lot of this stuff hits for so heavy, especially with cake tuna, that I've not honestly had that be an issue yet, which is why I don't have a Kuchaspel in here, because I just haven't needed it. However, if you're playing a locals that runs a lot of Aeriths or, Ishtolas or Minwus or whatever, absolutely you can tech this in to turn all that stuff off. You could easily replace the Geomancer or whatever you prefer. But yeah, that's a deck. I'll link the deck list online and below. I called it Ghost of Tsushima, based off of the excellent PS4 game that came out this year, which is about samurai, and just, man, fantastic game, and this deck kind of really inspired me. And again, I really was looking for that thing. There's other stuff out there, samurai, people who combine them with Magisa decks, that works well too, and I think that's kind of what's so nice about this package, is that you really can support them with anything. I've just personally found a really good marriage between them and Bahamut, and I've just had a blast with it. It's absolutely fun. Let me know what you think, and as always, we'll see you next time. Bye!